You ever get that feeling? That little hum of anxiety you can't quite name? The one that tells you when it comes to money, you're doing all the right things, but somehow the numbers just don't add up the way they're supposed to? Well, let's get into it because that feeling is very, very real, and there's a reason for it.
I mean, let's just get this out of the way right now. You're not just throwing money around. You think about your spending.
You work hard. You try to put a little something away. You're on top of your bills. In fact, you're probably more dialed in on your finances than any generation before you.
So what gives? That's the real question here, isn't it? If you're doing everything right, why does every dollar feel so heavy? Why does every small mistake feel so big? Well, the answer isn't about something you did wrong. It's about the entire system we're all trying to navigate.
The reason this feeling is so hard to pin down is because it's not one single thing you can point to. It's more like a whole bunch of smaller pressures, all stacking up on top of each other.
And you're not imagining it. This isn't a personal failure. It's a design feature of the modern economy. You see, any one of these pressures on its own might be manageable, but when they all pile up together, that's when they create a weight that can feel absolutely crushing.
So let's actually look at this pressure stack. First up, your wages. They just haven't kept up with the actual cost of things. Then you've got the cost of essentials. We're talking housing, groceries, eating up a much bigger slice of your paycheck. On top of that, you're swimming in social media, which gives you this totally warped view of what's normal, making you feel like you're constantly behind. And finally, there's just so much advice. It's an overload of information that honestly just leads to more confusion.
And all of this leads to a really fundamental change in how we think about work and what we get out of it. It's the reason so many of us feel completely burnt out, but without that feeling of actually getting anywhere.
Just look at this. It's so simple, but it says everything, doesn't it? There was this idea, this promise, that if you just worked harder, you'd get ahead. But now, for so many people, working harder, that's just what it takes to tread water, to simply stay where you are.
And this quote just nails that feeling perfectly. It's like you're on a treadmill. You're running, you're sweating, you're putting in the effort, but you look up and the finish line is somehow even further away than when you started. That is a recipe for exhaustion.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty behind that feeling. Let's look at the actual numbers that explain why your budget feels like it's in a constant squeeze.
Wow. Okay, this chart right here, this explains so much of that daily stress. Just look at the gap. While wages have kind of inched up over the years, the cost of just having a roof over your head has absolutely skyrocketed. That one single expense takes such a huge bite out of your income that there's barely anything left for, everything else.
And then there's this, the death by 1,000 tiny cuts. Everything is a subscription now. And sure, each one seems small, 10 bucks here, 15 there. But when you add them all up, they create this quiet, constant drain on your bank account. It's why you can look at your statement at the end of the month and just think, seriously, where did all my money go?
And this constant pressure, it's not just financial, it's psychological. The real weight of money isn't just about the numbers themselves. It's about the mental energy you have to spend constantly thinking about them.
And this is such a key distinction. It's not that you feel poor exactly. It's that you feel careful all the time. You're always on guard, always running the numbers in your head. And that state of constant vigilance, that is its own special kind of exhausting.
Okay, so that's the diagnosis. It's a lot, I know. But here's where we pivot, because once you can actually name the problem, you can start to do something about it. And the biggest step is all in how you frame it.
This right here is probably the most important concept to grasp. We used to live in a buffered system. A flat tire was an annoyance, sure, but it wasn't a catastrophe. Now we live in a tight system. There is practically zero margin for error. In a tight system, that same flat tire can feel like a full-blown crisis because there's just no cushion to absorb the shock.
And this is why understanding the big picture is so powerful. When you don't know why you're struggling, all that pressure turns inward. It becomes shame. You start asking yourself, what am I doing wrong? But the moment you understand the external forces you're up against, you can turn that pressure outward. It becomes strategy. You stop asking what you did wrong and you start asking, okay, given the circumstances, what can I do now?
So if you remember nothing else, please remember this. The game changed. The rules got harder. The margins for error shrank to almost nothing. Money feels heavier because life is tighter. This is not a reflection of your personal failure. It is a reflection of a massive economic shift. Look, understanding the terrain doesn't magically flatten the hills you have to climb. Of course not. But it does stop you from blaming yourself for how steep the climb is. It lets you trade that useless shame for some much-needed clarity. And that clarity? That's the very first step toward building a real plan that works for the world we actually live in today, not the one we were told to expect.